Welcome, everyone. I'm Tracy Fitzpatrick, and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at Netcom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's event, Learn How to Defend Against Network Security Breaches. Presenting today's topic is Nick Lanes. Nick, a technical program manager in security with over 25 years of experience, is a global cybersecurity leader, award-winning instructor, and best-selling author of the CASP Plus CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner Exam Guide. His expertise spans threat analysis, risk management, and secure architecture, with top certifications like CISSP, CISM, CEH, and Security Plus. Now, please bear in mind that this is an overview of a very robust topic. We offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored to your specific requirements. If you are interested in a further discussion, you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you'll get free access to the recording in the next 24 hours via email. Netcom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. We do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We do have 9 practice areas in which we specialize. They encompass people, process, and technology training. And today's presentation is from the security practice area. Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive training portfolio of courses for the topic being covered today. Our upcoming classes include various trainings on the given courses. You can also access a variety of marketing assets, such as the free training and blogs, by clicking on the available event handout. These offerings can be found with a simple search on our website at netcomlearning.com. Today's session is crafted to empower IT and security professionals with essential expertise and forward-thinking strategies to tackle the ever-evolving cybersecurity landscape. As critical players in this field, you'll explore advanced tools and methodologies to safeguard your organization, while acquiring key insights to progress your career as a cybersecurity analyst. Now, I would like to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started. To begin with, you do have the option to view in full screen by clicking on the full screen button on the right side of the GoToWebinar viewer. Simply hit the escape key to exit the full screen. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters. Feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters here in the questions pane, and we will address them at the end of the session. And to get the best out of today's events, we've included the slides, courses we talk about, and marketing assets in the handout section of your GoToWebinar viewer. You may refer to them at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And we do realize that some of you may have to leave early, and want to let you know that as you do leave the session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to take a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience and improve our future sessions for you. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. And now I'd like to pass this over to our trainer to present today's topic. Hey Nick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Tracy. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, to everyone that is attending this webinar. My name is Nicholas Lane. You can just call me Nick, and I'm excited to be here to discuss with you learning how to defend against network security breaches. I've been in training since about 20 years now, and I've been certified in pretty much every security certification out there. I've taught everything from Security Plus to the CISSP certified ethical hacker, and certified network defender, and the CISA Plus, and a whole bunch of other Microsoft certifications and a lot of the other CompTIA certifications. I'm also a best-selling author with cybersecurity with McGraw-Hill Education, and I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about a very important topic in cybersecurity, which is defending against network security breaches. Now, this presentation, we're going to focus on 4 different areas. We're going to take a look at an overview of network defense principles. So this will just be some basics just to make sure we have a good foundation. And then we're going to get into techniques for intrusion detection and mitigation. And then we'll take a look at what's called threat intelligence. We'll take a look at how to understand that and also managing vulnerabilities. And we'll also take a look at some cybersecurity standards and best practices. And then towards the end of the webinar, we'll do some questions and answers. But the first topic is going to be an overview of network defense principles. So in this section, we're going to take a look at how to protect computer networks from intrusions, various types of cybersecurity attacks. We'll take a look at unauthorized access, and that's going to focus on defense in depth. We'll take a look at least privilege. We'll take a look at network segmentation and also redundancy as our key network defense principles. Okay, defense in depth. If we're talking about fundamentals, it really makes sense to start here. And the reason why is because you can't secure an organization, you can't secure a network just by having one security control. You're going to have a layered security approach to your organization. So defense in depth describes a layered approach to security, how we implement multiple different layers of security controls to protect data and resources. So if you look at the center of that picture, that's our data. And then we have data security around that data. And then inside another layer is application. So we have application security controls we have to implement. And then the application resides in a host. We need to have host security controls. And then a host resides in an internal network or maybe a perimeter network, but we need internal security controls around that. And then that resides inside a perimeter. We need perimeter security controls. And then that resides in a physical environment. We need physical security controls. And then encapsulating all of that, we have policies, which are the rules that have to be followed, procedures, which is how do we follow those rules, and then awareness, which is why should we care? Each of these layers encapsulates every other layer. So if the adversary were to breach a layer, they got to contend with all the other layers, which will help us to make sure that we have good security. Think of it as kind of like a castle analogy. So for example, you have castle defenses, where there's multiple barriers, there's moats and walls and towers to protect against an invading army. And this covers the full gamut of business environments. It's very comprehensive. Redundancy is baked into it. It helps to enforce zero trust integration so that you have to be authenticated at every different layer of the model. And it's very adaptable. So it doesn't matter if you have a cloud-centric environment or it's more on-prem, or if you're working from home, or it's a combination of all of the above. It's very adaptable. Organizations need to have defense in depth if they want to have good security. Very important. Another very important topic we're going to take a look at here, and it's one that a lot of businesses struggle with, is the principle of least privilege. Okay, this is what it sounds like. We want to make sure that users have just enough access to do their jobs, nothing more and nothing less. We want to make sure they can do their jobs. We don't want to give them admin access unnecessarily, because sometimes businesses do that as a matter of convenience. We don't want to do that. And by doing this, we're going to reduce the attack surface of an organization because there's less privileges for a hacker to take over. It's going to help mitigate insider threats. In other words, people that are maybe working for the company or maybe customers, someone who's inside the business, if they want to take malicious action against the business, we want to make sure that they can't because privileges are at a minimum. We want to also prevent privilege creep. which is where people's privileges, they grow little by little over time until they have way too many privileges. That won't happen if you have a strict principal of least privilege policy of your business. This will help us to maintain compliance and security requirements, because a lot of regulations out there require this. And so this will help us to maintain compliance with those regulatory requirements. And it's also dynamic. In other words, you can adjust this. You can adjust it down to give people even less privileges, or you can adjust it up as needed. It doesn't have to be the same privileges forever. It's highly adaptable. Very important for businesses to apply the principle of least privilege for all of their users, even administrative level users. Give them only what they need, nothing more and nothing less. Now, this is a very important one here. It's called network segmentation. Okay, there's an old saying: if you chase two rabbits, they both get away. And how that applies to security, what you do is you give adversaries more than one target to deal with. You don't put all the users of one network. You separate them into different networks. That's what segments are. We're dividing the network into segments to limit the spread of attacks. So if a virus or some kind of malware attacks network 1, it will be contained to only network 1. It will hopefully not spread to other networks. That will absolutely improve security. It'll help reduce the attack surface also, because like I said, you can confine an attack or a virus hopefully to just that one segment. It also improves performance as well, because by having smaller networks, there's less traffic, there's less competition for resources, and therefore you get better performance. It also helps with regulatory compliance, because regulatory requirements often require segmentation. And there's also what's called micro-segmentation. This is where we can divide segments into even smaller segments, which will further isolate systems from adversaries. And therefore, the attack surface is even smaller, and it also improves performance as well. And sometimes you have to create segments because you got vulnerable devices. You might have some XP machines out there. You might have systems that are no longer supported by the vendor and they're not being patched anymore. So you have to isolate them from adversaries to minimize the likelihood of them being attacked. Segmentation, absolutely very, very important. Now, this is also very important as a network principle: redundancy. Okay, making sure that critical systems have backups and fail safes. So we can take that from the bottom to the top. At the bottom, you can say hard drives. Having more than one hard drive, if one fails, you have another one to take over immediately. If a system fails or a power supply fails, you have another one to take over. And you can rinse and repeat that process at the host layer. If a switch fails, you have another switch. If a network link fails, you have another network link. You can have multiple servers at a cluster. So if one server fails, you have other ones. Redundant ISP links, redundant data centers, something very common with cloud providers. The more redundancy you have, the more resilient you're going to be when there's an attack. So you're going to get a lot more reliability with your networks. It'll help you to recover from disaster easier. It reduces single points of failure because, like I said, another device or another component will just take over if there's an attack, let's say. And this will help to minimize downtime because you have redundant links, you have redundant hardware, redundant servers. It could also help with performance because if there's no failures occurring, you could have, let's say, 2 servers working together instead of just one, and that improves performance. But there's also a downside. It's expensive. It's expensive buying everything twice. It's expensive having redundancy at the hardware level, at the network level, at the connectivity level. It's very expensive, but you have to ask yourself, what's more expensive? Having redundancy or paying for a $100 million security breach? Definitely a valid question. So in that section, we talked about redundancy, we talked about segmentation, we talked about the principle of least privilege, and we talked about defense in depth. Just some fundamentals. Now, we got to take a look at intrusion detection. We got to take a look at mitigation, because the fact of the matter is there's a lot of hackers out there. There's a lot of malicious actors, and we need to be able to detect them, and we have to be able to mitigate any attacks that they launch against us. So in this section, we'll take a look at signature-based detection, we'll take a look at anomaly-based detection, and we'll take a look at incident response. So signature-based detection, okay, the key word there is signature. Okay, this is where we're monitoring an environment. We can be monitoring a single computer, a group of computers, we can be monitoring servers, we can be monitoring networks. But the question is, how does that monitoring work? We're going to be looking for known patterns. It's like with email, looking for known email addresses or known domain names. Every type of attack has a certain signature. And the question is, do our tools know what that signature is? And for the most part, our tools know, they know about millions and millions of types of signatures out there, okay? And as a result, we can detect known threats. And because they're known threats, it's very accurate, because a signature is very specific to an attack, a very particular virus, a very particular kind of ransomware, a very particular kind of email. There's a known signature to it. We'll be able to identify it and hopefully know how to deal with it. And because it's known, it's fast. It's fast to detect these things. Now, the signatures have to be updated. So whatever tool we're using, or groups of tools, we got to update them frequently to make sure that we have the latest signatures. Now, there is a weakness here, as there always is, okay? This tool or this technique, it's not good at unknown threats, okay? There are vulnerabilities out there that are called zero-day vulnerabilities, where these are vulnerabilities that are not known to the vendors. And if they don't know about it, how can they patch it? So signature-based detection does not do well with unknown threats. So then the question becomes, what does do a good job with unknown threats? And that is what we have for anomaly-based detection. This is designed specifically for detecting the more esoteric, the more unknown types of threats out there. And the way it does it is it learns what is normal. And if you know what normal looks like, it becomes a lot easier to detect what is abnormal. And that abnormal type of network traffic or that abnormal type of software execution could be some kind of an attack. So we're going to use a combination of signature-based as well as anomaly-based detection when we are performing our intrusion detection and mitigation. So we're going to detect unknown threats. We're going to do behavioral analysis. Behavioral analysis is the study of how a user uses a computer. It's a study of how what software is on a system, the way that software works, network traffic patterns, to kind of get a sense of what normal is, so that we can eventually determine what is abnormal. Machine learning integration, so that's a very popular artificial intelligence term. Machine learning is an AI concept of where our software is going to simulate human learning behaviors, learn kind of the way a human learns, therefore become more intelligent about detecting and mitigating threats. Monitoring will happen in real time because every second counts. And also, what's good about anomaly-based detection is it's designed to look for the unknown, and therefore it's very versatile. You can plug it in anywhere. But there are challenges. Like anything I recommend, there's always challenges. And one of those is the high rate of what they call false positives. In other words, the software thinks something is a threat when it actually isn't. And therefore you get alerts, this is something threatening happening. And then an hour later you realize, oh, that wasn't a threat. That was just normal stuff that we didn't realize. That's the problem with anomaly-based detection, a lot of false positives. Now, a major part of any kind of cyber defense program is going to be your ability to perform incident response. Incident response is a combination of detecting and responding to an incident. Now, an incident, it could be cybersecurity in nature, it could be a power outage, It could be it could be a server crash. An incident is anything negative that affects productivity. But we're talking right now about cybersecurity incidents. And so we need to have what's called an incident response plan. That plan will tell us how to be prepared for incident detection. It'll tell us how to, what resources we need to have, who are key players, who are our stakeholders. We need to have that plan that tells us how to actually enforce a good incident response program for a business. Okay, we have to be prepared for incident response. We have to be able to detect incidents when they occur in real time. Because a lot of times businesses, they get hacked and we don't learn about it until 6 months later when we're looking through old logs. We want to improve that by having real-time incident detection and analysis. Now, if an incident were to happen, we don't want it to spread. And what do? You contain it. You try to contain the incident to its own VLAN or to its own segment or to a particular computer so it doesn't spread. And then we eradicate whatever it is. We get rid of the malware. We get rid of whatever the attacking behavior is. And then if any damage is done, we recover from it. And then you're going to have your lessons learned. Okay, what could we do better? What did we do well? What didn't we do well? That's called the incident, the post-incident response or the after-action report. It's all part of a good incident response program. Now, you can have the best incident detection and mitigation in place, but you're not going to prevent all incidents. You're also not going to detect all of them either. But by having a good incident response program, you'll definitely have improve your odds of good response. Good response times, good mitigations, good remediations, and so forth. Okay, the next section we're going to take a look at here is understanding threat intelligence and managing vulnerabilities. Okay, so we have to, as they say, learn the enemy. Okay, a lot of businesses, they focus on knowing themselves. But if we don't know the enemy, then we're not going to be in the best position to detect and respond to incident behaviors. So we need to take a look at what they call threat intelligence sources, and also vulnerability management, because if we don't manage our vulnerabilities, then threats are going to take advantage of us a lot more easily. So let's start off with threat intelligence sources, or threat intel, as they call it. We have to learn the enemy. We have to learn what the hacker community is saying out there, because hackers sometimes announce what they're doing, or they talk in message boards or on Discord or wherever it might be. We have to kind of venture out there and kind of get a sense of what people are talking about. So we could take a look at some what they call open source intelligence sources. So these are like public companies, releasing data about a business, and there's a chance that malicious actors might be chatting on open source intelligence sites as well. But the idea here is we're looking to the good guys to learn more about the hacker temperature out there, and if anyone's planning any attacks. We can also look at internal data, like look at our network logs. Take a look at our previous incident response tickets. Take a look at our security systems, see if we can identify any patterns or anomalies that have occurred historically at our companies. We can look internal as well, not just externally. Very important one here, threat intelligence feeds. Okay, so there are vendors out there, let's say CrowdStrike, for example, or Palo Alto Cortex, or, pick one. There's a lot of security companies out there. They have these threat intelligence feeds. Think of these as sort of like, kind of like signatures, if you will. Those get updated all the time, and we can collect those feeds into our security tools to see what are the latest threats out there that we can anticipate and protect against. That's a very important part of a good, not just defensive security program, but also an offensive security program. Information sharing communities. So these are like message boards online, or maybe you could look at like the FBI or look at government resources out there to see what is the FBI saying about some well-known threats out there. Dark web monitoring. This is where it gets interesting. This is where a business they might hire an offensive security person, and they go out to the dark web. The dark web is the part of the internet that's a bit more dicey. These might be sites that are not publicly known, but you go there and you it's kind of like like someone, like, let's say, like a police person. They're doing like a sting operation. They're really going in on the inside, going undercover, trying to see what the malicious actors are saying out there. What tools are they using, or what conversations are they having, and really trying to, have there been any really expensive purchases or threats. You're really kind of rubbing shoulders with the enemy there, but they don't know that you're spying. So that's a very powerful technique, although sometimes a little bit risky, to learn about threat intelligence. And of course, human intelligence. In other words, gathering information from, it could be security researchers, analysts, or informants. Okay, so we can get more information about the threat landscape out there. Now, the other part of the section is vulnerability management. Okay, vulnerability management is what it sounds like. We want to identify our own vulnerabilities. We want to assess their risk levels, their severities, and we want to mitigate whatever vulnerabilities that we have with our hardware, with our software. It could be firmware updates. It could be, patching. It could be default configurations. These could all be vulnerabilities that we need to fix. And if you have a full-blown vulnerability management program, this is a cycle that you're going to repeat over and over and over again with identifying, assessing, and mitigating vulnerabilities. It's a process that never ends, because you're never going to find all vulnerabilities. There's never that last vulnerability that you find, and now there's no more. No such thing as perfect security. And then there's new versions of software that you get, and then they have a whole new slate of vulnerabilities. The process never ends. Now, identifying vulnerabilities, the different methods, you might have a vulnerability scanning tool, like, for example, Tenable Nessus, that specifically scans for vulnerabilities. Another one out there called OpenVAS. Microsoft has their own kind of vulnerability scanning tools. There's a lot of them out there that they scan and then they find the vulnerabilities. They don't usually mitigate them, though. Usually a person will have to step in and do that separately. But I mean, there are tools out there that can auto patch and auto remediate, but that's not always what happens because it's risky. So if you want to do auto remediation, you're going to have to test it first. And organizations that do proper risk management, they're going to incorporate vulnerability management into a broader risk assessment that they're doing for the organization. Remediate or mitigate, basically the same thing. It just means to fix the vulnerability. Okay. Now, fixing a vulnerability doesn't always get rid of it entirely. It might just reduce the severity of the vulnerability. It depends. We need to track this so that we can show return on investment to our leaders. Hey, look at all these vulnerabilities we found, and look how many we fixed. That's important to show to leaders, because if you're spending $750K a year on a vulnerability management tool, year over year over year, you're spending this money, you want to show return on investment. And of course, compliance and security. Any legitimate regulation out there is going to require that you have a good vulnerability management process. So that's a very important thing, is to comply with industry requirements or state or federal laws. They're different for every industry, but you need to know what your compliance requirements are. Okay, this section here is the final section of this webinar before we turn it over to questions. Adhering to cybersecurity standards and best practices. Maybe you've heard of ISO 27001. Maybe you've heard of the NIST cybersecurity framework or the CIS controls. Okay, these are very important for building a good enterprise-wide cybersecurity program. We're going to take a look at each of these. Okay, one of, if not the most important information security standard out there is the 27001 standard by the ISO IEC organizations. It's actually two separate companies that kind of work together on this. So ISO IEC, we just call it ISO 27001. It's an international standard for information security management systems. Okay, the key word there is standard. It's not a law. It's not like HIPAA. HIPAA is laws. Okay, we're not talking about laws. These are standards. In other words, an organization does not have to do this. But if they want to brag to the world, hey, we're ISO 27001 certified, then you're going to want to meet the requirements of ISO 27001. So it's an international standard for one. And that means every industry in virtually every country out there will recognize this. If you are ISO 27001 certified, then your customers, your partners, the whole supply chain, they're going to feel a certain confidence that you have a good information security program because you have been certified as ISO 27001 compliant. This standard, it requires that you have a risk management program. You would have to get certified if you want to say that you are ISO 27001 compliant. It focuses on what's called the CIA triad, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So in other words, the standard requires that you meet all of those goals of the triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It requires that an organization continually improve their security because the threat landscape is always changing, and therefore we have to keep growing to meet that threat landscape. And it's also the standard holistic. In other words, it covers everything in the organization. It covers all the people, it covers all the processes, it covers all the technology. It's from top to bottom, soup to nuts. It's a holistic program. So again, not a legal requirement, but a lot of organizations, they want to get certified because they want to show that they have a good security program. They want to get ISO 27001 certified. Now, NIST is a little different. NIST is actually a function of the US government. It's a security standard department, if you will, primarily focused on securing federal systems. Federal, in other words, government systems, FBI, CIA, or anything federal. So it could even be like federal utility companies. NIST has security standards for all these federal systems. Now, the good thing is you don't have to be a federal environment to want to do this. Okay, any organization can benefit from utilizing a NIST standard. Now, this one here is called the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. Okay, this is not a standard. This is a security framework that provides guidelines on how organizations can reduce their cybersecurity risk. And it's based on these 5 core functions. We're going to identify risk. We're going to protect the organization from risk. We're going to detect some type of malicious actions. We're going to respond to it. And if there's any damage, we'll recover from it. So those 5 core functions, there's going to be a lot of security requirements in there that will target each of those 5 functions. And even though NIST focuses on the federal government, it is widely adopted. Any corporation out there, small business, large business, can use this. And because it works for any type of environment, it's flexible and scalable to any type of organization. And it also requires continuous improvement. And because NIST is required for federal environments, it does help you with regulatory alignment. And even though NIST is government focused, okay, there is a collaboration between the public and private sectors to make sure that NIST works not just for the federal part of the country, but also for for businesses as well. That way, it really is holistic and it covers all of the above. Now, here's another type of a well-known security standard out there. It's called the CIS controls, or what they call the CIS 18. Maybe you don't want to do ISO 27001. Maybe you don't care about NIST. Maybe you want something that is control focused. When I say control, I'm saying a security countermeasure. Like, for example, control number 1, inventory and control of enterprise assets. So these 18 controls, we can build a cybersecurity program around controls. What are we doing for control number 1? What are we doing for control number 3, which is data protection? What are we doing for control number 18, which is penetration testing? Are we going to do internal pen testing and or external pen testing? How do we want to meet that? Well, we have these 18 controls. They're very well documented on the CIS website. If you don't know all the different areas of your environment you need to protect, and you don't know what types of controls to use, then you can adopt the CIS controls, or you can use ISO, or you can use NIST. Like, the whole point of this is these are standardized types of frameworks that we can build our cybersecurity program around. So we don't have to start from scratch not knowing what we're doing. And the final topic we're going to take a look here is regular audits and assessments. If you can't measure something, you can't manage something. You have to be able to monitor and measure your environment in order to know how best to manage it. It's like getting grades at school. If you don't know what the child is doing and what their grades are, you're not going to know if they're doing well, if they're falling behind. It's the same thing with business environments. There has to be measurement. And so we audit. Audits, a lot of times they're done for regulatory reasons. In other words, you have to do it. But some businesses just, they want to be smart and they know it's a good idea. Whether or not it's a requirement, they got to do it anyway. So businesses will often have their own internal audit environments where an internal person does the auditing. And some businesses have both internal and external auditors. Like, for example, if you process credit card data, that means you fall under scope with PCI. There's going to be a PCI auditor if your company's big enough, and they're going to assess your environment to make sure that you are adequately protecting credit card data. So whoever it is, internal people, external, or both, we need to regularly assess our environment for vulnerabilities, making sure that we're complying with whatever standards or laws that are out there, whether it's HIPAA because you're a medical company, whether it is, let's see, Sarbanes-Oxley because you're publicly traded, or let's say you're in the gaming industry, you have to comply with gaming laws. There's always going to be compliance requirements that you're going to have to adhere to. And the good news is it's going to improve your security posture because you are forcing yourself to be honest about your weaknesses from a cybersecurity perspective. And so you're going to mitigate those weaknesses. It's going to help build trust. Our leadership will start trusting that we know what we're doing. Our customers, our partners, our suppliers, okay, will, maybe we want to acquire someone or someone wants to acquire us. Whatever the scenario is, there'll be more trust because we have a good cybersecurity program. We can show audit reports that we're complying with everything. And what we're not complying with, we have remediation scheduled. Because you're rarely going to comply with everything. There's usually going to be some flags and you have to remediate within a certain period of time. And by improving your security, you improve your business continuity because security attacks sometimes will knock you offline and then you lose your business continuity. But by improving your security, your business will be up more often. It'll perform well more often. Now, the irony about security is a lot of leaders will say, well, we would do more security, but it's too expensive. It's too expensive to do it. it's not nearly as expensive as recovering from a cybersecurity breach. Is it worth having a $50 million a year cybersecurity budget in order to protect against a $100 million breach from leaked data and lawsuits and whatever else that happens as a result of a cybersecurity breach? So it's cost effective in that A, you will probably prevent the attack, and B, if you do get attacked, the attack will hopefully not be as bad and therefore financially not as damaging. So it is cost effective to implement regular audits and assessments because preventing cybersecurity breaches is cost effective. And with that, I will turn it back over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. That was most informative. I know everyone is looking forward to the Q&A session, so go ahead and start putting your questions into the question panel. And while you do that, I'd like to give the presentation rights over to Nikita Singh, our Deputy Manager of Product Marketing, to introduce our promotions and webinar-related courses.
Thank you for extending the opportunity to speak with the audience today. I hope the session was informative and it added value to your learning experience. You can watch the event recording by clicking the Access Recording button here. Now, I would like to highlight Netcom learning capabilities and why we are the best when it comes to training and learning services. Recognized by Microsoft as the winners of the Partner of the Year awards 2 years in a row, 2023 and 2022, we excel in guiding organizations to achieve peak performance while addressing their challenges through comprehensive organizational learning solutions. Our dedication since 1998 has led us to service over 80% of Fortune 1000 companies and served 100 plus US military bases. We have trained over 1 million professionals and helped 36,000 plus organizations achieve their business goals. We have a huge portfolio of more than 3,300 certified trainers who are subject matter experts in their domains, and our dedication to providing customized learning methods is why we are awarded as the top 20 IT training companies by trainingindustry.com. As you continue your cybersecurity journey, Netcom Learning offers a comprehensive portfolio of security courses to help you advance your skills and career. Being accredited training partner of EC Council, I would like to announce our upcoming schedules of EC Council training that you can explore through this handout. These courses are designed to equip you with the essential knowledge and skills needed to protect your organization from cyber threats and advance in your cybersecurity career. To add value to your learning curve, we encourage you to leverage our valuable marketing assets such as free on-demand trainings and blog on EC Council certifications. Access these resources to stay informed on the latest trends, best practices, and advancements in cybersecurity. We understand the importance of having a skilled and knowledgeable cybersecurity team. That's why we offer our comprehensive security skilling program designed to meet all your security training needs. Whether you are looking to upskill your teams or provide hands on experience, our security skilling program can help you achieve your organizational goals. Our program offers highly customizable training solutions tailored to suit your company's specific goals. We provide various learning modes, including virtual instructor led, private group sessions, and e learning options. Explore our security skilling learning path to unlock a variety of cybersecurity courses tailored to your needs. You can also take advantage from Learning Passport, which is Netcom Learning's solution to flexible team training. It is designed to be customized for the number of learners you train on top technology vendors like Microsoft, Cisco, CompTIA, Adobe, and more. The single package can be redeemed for over 4,000 plus official courses with a validity of 12 months. To introduce you to Netcom Plus Learner subscription, which is complimentary for all the attendees. And Netcom Plus provides you access to more than 400 e-learning courses across various technologies and vendors. I would recommend you all to visit Netcom Learning's website for more information on courses and certifications, free virtual events, our latest blogs and ebooks, and promotional offers. If you want to build a smarter workforce and drive business growth, I highly recommend you go through the book Building an Innovative Learning Organization by Russell Sader, CEO of Netcom Learning. You can easily find this ebook on Amazon. And for the latest updates on IT and business training, follow us and subscribe to our social media handles. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
Thanks so much for guiding us through that information, Nitika. And now we're going to go ahead and jump right into our question and answer session. If you haven't yet, it's not too late to pop your questions into the question panel. And as we start our Q&A sessions, we're also going to launch a quick poll that we want to invite you to participate in. Doing so helps us to know how we can better serve you by telling us who might be interested in more information or in taking some additional training. In addition, we have a lot more informative webinars coming up, so please go to netcomlearning.com/webinars in order to register. The first question we have today is, which of your network defense recommendations would you say is the most important one for me to implement at my organization?
Okay, so that's a very good question. Okay, the most important recommendation that should be implemented at a company. Okay, I would have to say I'm going to give you two answers. It's really hard to pick just one. I'm going to say the principle of least privilege and segmentation. I'm going to pick two. The principle of least privilege, we want to limit the privileges of not just the users, but also you administrators. Administrators don't have to be admins 24/7. Sometimes they're checking email. Sometimes they're, doing spreadsheet work. Sometimes they're doing normal operational things. So even admins, you can implement what's called privileged access management, so that even administrators they're only admins at the time of need and for just a little while. Otherwise, when they don't need admin privileges, their permission level drops. We want that for users. We don't want them having too many privileges, but even your administrators. And that's very important because A lot of times when companies get hacked, the hackers go after the admin credentials. But if you got a good privileged access management system in place, even the attackers will be limited because their admin credentials are not going to be admins all the time. So principal least privilege, I would absolutely say, is the most important, or one of the most important things you can take away from this webinar. The second one is segmentation. And the way I said it before, I'm going to say it again. If you chase two rabbits, they both get away. Segmentation, you are separating your assets so that attackers can only reach a small subset of them. Viruses can only attack a small subset of them. And if there's an internal attack, again, that attack will take place within the confines of a segment, therefore limiting the spread of the attack to hopefully just that segment. And I say hopefully because I don't speak in absolutes. Just because an attack happens on one segment, I'm not saying it will never ever spread to another one. Okay, it is a possibility it can, but you still want segmentation because that will greatly reduce the attack surface and reduce the probability of attackers being successful in their attacks.
If I want to learn more about these network defense techniques, which certification should I pursue?
Okay, that's a good question also. Let me answer that. If you want to learn more about these techniques, which certification should I pursue? Okay, one thing you're going to know is there's a lot of cybersecurity certifications out there. Okay, but the good news is there's a couple that you really should focus on in your, maybe in the earlier portions of your career, or actually it doesn't even matter what part of your career. You should always get Security Plus certified. That is a must. I would start with Security Plus certification. That is the most popular security certification out there. It is absolutely the first one that pretty much everyone should do. And what's really great about it is it covers a little bit of everything. It covers a little bit of incident response. It covers a little bit of segmentation. It covers a little bit of malware. It covers a little bit of penetration testing. It covers a little bit of privileged access. It covers a little bit of every single security concept out there. A little bit of multi-factor authentication, a little bit of disaster recovery, a little bit of penetration testing, if I didn't say that already. Security Plus is an absolute must if you want to learn more about not just what we talked about in this webinar, but about the very broad field of cybersecurity itself. You've got to start there. Now, if you want more detail into all the things that Security Plus talks about, you should look at the CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner, the CASP Plus. That's actually a book that I wrote for McGraw-Hill about 4 or 5 years ago. The outline is pretty similar to Security Plus, but with that certification, it's a lot more advanced. It goes to a lot more detail. And so if you're already Security Plus certified and you want to learn more, I would absolutely go with the CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner. I could throw in the CISSP as well. The difference is the CISSP is more managerial focused. It's not so much for the subject matter expert. It's more so for security leaders. And I'm speaking in general here. Whereas Security Plus, CASP Plus are more focused on the subject matter expert, the person who is actually, boots to the ground, implementing cybersecurity controls.
If we implement all of your recommendations, what are the odds that my company's network will get hacked?
Okay, that's also a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. If we implement all of your recommendations, what are the odds that my company's network will get hacked? Okay, I'm going to be honest with you about this. If you implement everything that I recommended here, okay, you're not going to be at a 0% risk. I'm not going to ever say that there's no more risk, but you will significantly reduce your risk of being attacked by an adversary. Okay. Now, the challenge that businesses run into is budget. Okay. the cybersecurity budget, it is what it is. It might be $100,000 a year. It might be $50 million a year. There's generally not enough money to secure everything the way that you want. So you're going to have to prioritize. And I think the things that we talked about in this webinar absolutely should be prioritized. So make sure you have defense in depth. Make sure you have segmentation. Make sure you have principal of least privilege. Make sure you have an incident response program if it's within budget, so you can reduce your risk. And that's really all security is. You are reducing risk to your important things, your important people, processes, and technology. You're reducing that risk to an acceptable level. The key words are acceptable level. You're never going to have zero risk. But if you do everything we talked about in this webinar, you will reduce your risk significantly compared to your competitors, compared to other organizations that don't really care about security. You do this stuff, you will reduce your security risk significantly, and maybe the hacker won't bother with you. They'll go attack someone else who's easier.
Once again, I want to remind you that as you leave this session today, you will be presented with a short survey. We would like to request for you to help us by taking a quick moment to participate in that survey. Your feedback really helps us understand your learning experience as we are constantly looking at how we can improve our future sessions. The survey answers are measured on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 representing outstanding and 1 representing poor. We want to thank all of you for joining us today, and if you do come up with any additional questions, feel free to send them to webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us soon. Feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Have a great day, everyone.